Hello, good morning. Welcome to Gaming Insight Daily for Wednesday, April 16th. No, that's not right. Yes, it is. Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. I'm Steve Saylor. This is your daily show of gaming news, accessibility news, or updates about my life. I have coffee in my Matrix mug today, and we're going to need it because we're going to dive into the matrix of something today in this episode. Not going to lie, though, I do feel a little bit naked because Spotify is down right now and I can't play my music that I normally have in the background. So I feel very exposed without any music just filling my ears. So, okay, we're gonna have to get through it. And I checked. Spotify apparently is just down everywhere. So it's not just me, because I spent the past 20 minutes just trying to be able to figure out if it was my end or if it was outage or something. So, however, all right, we're going to get into, instead of news today, we're going to get into something that I had an epiphany of this morning. So I've been, I take notes for certain things, for like to-do lists, and also have a feel-good notes book. I have also books, like a notebook for D&D. But I've been keeping notes for, if you've seen this in the previous video, you know exactly what this notebook is for. I've been keeping notes for playing blueprints, and I'm using my Alcatraz notebook. Yes, it's the notebook that you get from the gift store when you go to Alcatraz. I have been keeping voracious notes. I'm just showing them for the audio listeners. I'm showing to the showing without trying to spoil it for anybody. Just trying to be able to showing that at least I've got at least a couple pages worth of notes here that I've been sort of taking for blueprints. And I mentioned in my previous video, in my first impressions, that I found that taking notes is extremely difficult or challenging for those with cognitive disabilities. Being able to have a pen and paper in order to be able to take notes for a video game can be overwhelming for cognitive disabled players. And the epiphany I had this morning was, I was watching my friend of the show, MC Fixer. This was his and his fiancée Haley's first time playing blueprints this morning, and Haley was the one that was taking notes for Fixer, and she was writing down notes for with everything that they could see or they thought was important. And the biggest issue that I saw with taking notes, and I couldn't put my finger on it, and I think I figured out exactly why taking notes with a pen and paper or just taking notes in general for video games can be, for cognitive disabled players, difficult or challenging. It's because and in regards to this particular game, there are so many things that are happening at the beginning of the game that every time you enter a room, you don't know, you write down what the notes of what you think is important. But at the beginning of the game, you don't know what's important. So you write down everything. So you can get but if you have to write down everything, you start to get overwhelmed. You start overanalyzing everything because you don't know what's important or what the game deems as important. I will say, now granted, I'm now officially day 21 in the game. Still haven't beaten it yet, but I'm day 21 in the game. And I will say that, yes, there are certain things that are important, but not everything. And the problem is at the beginning of the game, and you do learn that. You do learn what is important, what certain things in previous rooms are important. And that is, I think, the real challenge for cognitive disabled players, is because you're writing down what you think is important, and you kind of, in a way, become overwhelmed, and you can't progress forward because you're unsure of making. You feel like you're going to make mistakes by doing anything, by figuring out, okay, what room do I draw? What benefits does this do I have to fill in dead ends? Do I have to fill in every single spot? Like there's a lot of it's a lot of decision paralysis, a lot of short-term, like those with cognitive disabilities have short-term memory loss. So yes, taking notes definitely can help in that. But again, because you don't know what's important, you write down everything. And when you write down everything, and if you don't know what's important, you don't know what the game is trying to tell you, what to teach you. So you can go off into potentially some red herrings that could waste hours of playtime when you could have been focusing on other stuff that was important. And for cognitive disabled players, there's an issue of trying to be able to do that. So what I thought about today, and that was the epiphany I had in regards to cognitive disabled players, is that you write down everything because you think everything's important, and when you think everything's important, you get overwhelmed. That was the epiphany. So I thought, well, okay, so the game encourages you to take notes, right? I thought it'd be a fun little experiment this morning, just briefly, not really going fully in depth. And I'm going to do this without trying to do any spoilers as best as possible, even for spoilers that potentially could be like of rooms or items, what have you, that you can, so you can, discover it for yourself. But I figured what we could do is do a little like mini game design session of trying to design a note-taking system for blueprints. And I'm talking about something that a note because and here's the parameters of designing a note-taking system in blueprints. A, it has to not spoil or ruin the experience of the game. Okay. It has to not give away any inadvertent hints to what's up ahead or what's to come, so you can discover it for yourself. So discoverability and what was the other ones? Discoverability and hints. Yeah, so those are the two parameters of trying to be able to create a note-taking system within the game itself. This is a digital note-taking system. All right, and we're going to do that first off with, I think, is actually probably the closest that they have to a note-taking system in the game, and that is this menu right here. I chose this menu specifically because it doesn't spoil anything at all for rooms, for anything else other than it's as a blank of a map menu as you could possibly can. Now, I've got markup basically on, so I can be able to actually like and use yellow as the thing. And we're gonna, yeah. So we're gonna take a look at this whole entire this menu here and see if there's a way we could be able to create a good note-taking system or design a note-taking system within the game. All right. This is where essentially, because the game already has this menu, this is where I think our note-taking system should take place, because a lot of information is given in this menu alone. So this is the map of the entire estate, that every time you unlock a room, these squares get filled. Okay. And the blueprint that is like, we'll just call this the blueprint menu. The blueprint basically and then shows you a larger image of the room that you're currently in. Or if you have opened up different rooms and you have your mouse over each of the individual rooms, it'll show up in this where this giant entrance hall is. Then you see an inventory section here. This is where you can be able to see your inventory of items you collected within the game. And then there's other stuff that I don't want to be able to spoil. But let's just say that everything that's in this menu is warranted, is needed. Okay. And then also you got your day at the top right corner, and then you have your steps, which is your 50, that's your starting steps. And then you get all the different, I'll just say, keys, coins, and gems. You have the amount that you currently have in this, where these steps are. Now, I will say, as you go along, you can be able to look back at your previous days. Okay? But the problem with going back to your previous days is that it only shows you just the map that you filled in. And then it tells you, here are the amount of steps you took. Here's the rooms that you found that were new. Here's the rank that you got. And that's it. It kind of gives you just that quick summary of the room. I would suggest, as a game design option, is to be able to instead of using just the map, basically create another digital version of this same menu for that day, so that you know what items you unlocked, what others like what rooms you've unlocked. And also how you ended with what date, like what did you end, like how many keys, gems, and coins you unlocked or collected or still had left over by the end of the day, because that in and of itself will make it a little bit cognitive more accessible. Now, I will say, as far as accessibility goes as well, I think there's other things that can be able to change. Like colorblindness is definitely something that I've heard that they are working on. So I'm not going to mention anything about trying to be able to make anything more colorblind friendly in this, because that is something that's already it's being worked on according to the devs. So here is where I think we could be able to make a digital note-taking system. There could be either a button somewhere on here or a little bit more information, like all this stuff, all this information, all this blank space does get filled in eventually with other things. That's all I'll say. Now there is another menu that I can show you. That's this menu. Now this is the closest I can be able to find without having to try to go in and take the without spoiling anything. The antechamber is the room that you're trying to get to. That's essentially kind of like room 46. There is a directory of all the rooms that you've unlocked from 1 to 1 to 46. And instead of where this large antechamber thing is, there is a grid. Kind of think of it as kind of a trophy collection system, or like if you played Pokemon TCG, you see that you see the cards you collected and the number. If you haven't opened up that, or if you haven't unlocked or collected that room, there's basically a number there instead. So it tells you what rooms if you've filled out all the rooms from 1 to 12, and if there's any blank spots, it just has a grid space of that number. What I would love to be able to see happen, and this is why I want to bring in the other, bring in this menu, is because this is available within the menu system of the game. So already you have the system, kind of like a baseline system of where you can be able to create a digital note-taking system, okay? And this is where we start kind of getting into the nitty-gritty. So we'll just say we'll go back to the other this is where this note-taking system can take place within this menu or within the where was it? The blueprints menu. So you get into a room, all right. And I'll just bring this up here. So it all stems around this section here. Okay, you see the room that you're in. Now I don't know what other space is being taken up in this. I haven't unlocked further into the game to be able to see if there is anything that actually this space is for. But this would be a good spot to be able to take notes for the rooms that you unlock. This is not for rooms that have yet to be unlocked. This is for rooms that you've found before. Because here's the thing: the rooms, when you unlock them further into the game, they don't change. There are certain things you can do to the rooms to be able to change items within the room, or there are certain things that have clues within the room. But there are sometimes the different types of items can be randomly found. There is a bit of RNG for the things you find in the room, but the room itself doesn't change. There's all the same furniture. There's all the same furnishings. There are certain things that I don't want to, because there is a key thing that I don't want to spoil. But for 98% or 90, I would say even 95% of the time, the room doesn't change. Or at least the layout, the look, the art of the room. So what I would love to see is sort of an adoption, just kind of the first starting of this note-taking process, is adopting essentially the Prince of Persia, the Lost Crown memory shards type situation. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know exactly where I'm going with this. In Prince of Persia, there is a way within it's because it's a Metroidvania, there is a map, and you basically can be able to take screenshots of the section that you're in that gets placed within the map itself. So that way you can look back if you're further along in the map, and you're like, wait, what was the thing that I wanted to be able to take a look at again? You can go into the map and you can see the screenshots or the memory shards that you've taken, and you can look at that and you can be able to, and it shows the screen that you took the screenshot on. It shows the whole entire screen, and you can be like, oh, that treasure chest that's there. I needed to be able to jump up high in order to be able to get that. I now know I can be able to do that. So, adopting that same idea, what if there's a screenshot system or a photo mode system that you can take that collects in here? Right? And you could take, I'd say probably maybe like a certain amount of screenshots per room. So basically, so that way it doesn't overload the system essentially, or it doesn't spoil it too much. So basically you could take, so each room that you've unlocked, you could take basically an equivalent of 6 screenshots. I'd say 4 technically, because each, like, you know, for each wall, but I'd say, like, say for instance, we'll just say for this purpose, 6 screenshots. And every time that you unlock a room and you kind of select it with the mouse in this, or you kind of hover over it whenever you unlock it in the map. By the way, this only pops up whenever you have unlocked that room, right? And I think that's also as well, this will be a good a way for the drafting process when you have to select 3 rooms to be able to draft. You should be able to have access to this, to a basic version of this note-taking system, so you can be able to take a look at the notes that you have for that room. I think, and I don't think that that's like too much of a hint or anything like that. It helps you to be able to figure out what is it in that room, like, because there are certain things that are in rooms that are not in other rooms. Okay, and you need to be able to be like remember. Oh wait, did this room have this, or did this room have this? And that's where you have to start taking notes physically. So if you take screenshots of it, you can be able to get access to that during the drafting process. Then you'll be able to see, oh right, this room had this, because I looked at the screenshots and that's what this room had. That's the thing that I needed, and that's the thing that I needed for this particular clue, what have you. And so you can be able to take screenshots up to 6. We'll just say in this scenario. And that's essentially, that's part of the note taking system. So you can be able to at least see that. Okay. And then there are also, in some rooms, there are letters, there are books, there are postcards. It's not really not much of a spoiler, but there's stuff that you can be able to find. Now, there are certain things that are important, and there's some things that are just, you know, story based. So I would say in each room, you should be able to, and these are the we'll just say 2, 3. Terrible for writing number. So each time, so if there's a room that has notes or a book or a notepad or what have you, you should be able to take a look at the kind of basically bring up a version of this in here in this section. And the reason why I say that, and a lot of people may think, oh, that kind of gives away too much. No. Because these notes and these books do not change. And you're only collecting them once you've unlocked the room. So there's nothing that's spoiling. There's nothing that's anything. It's basically just, now the only difference is, and I'll say this kind of as a minor spoiler, is the library. But I still think that the library, once you've opened up a book, and I'm being very careful about spoiling it. Once you've opened up a book, that book should also be available in this section when you hover over the library room. Just so, and I'm not, and I will say, and I'm not saying, because there are certain tools that essentially can be able to help with these notes. I'll say that we'll just say, for instance, to kind of keep the parameters that we have, no spoilers and no hints, is that, and this allows us for the player to be able to take as like whatever notes that they want. This is a digital note-taking system for the player. You should not be able to use any tools for this. You should still have to unlock the room, and you should still now the only drawback to that, and this is something that again I'd have to figure out, is if you can't use any tools, does that prevent you from looking at the notes within the room themselves? Potentially. Because again, the game doesn't give you enough information as far as what to do. But there are cards in some rooms that explain sometimes some parameters of what the rooms do. Okay, I'll just say, I think because within the first one, within the entrance hall, it tells you about the drafting of rooms. Okay. So there's these little black cards, essentially these black note cards that are in specific rooms. I would say you could create within the game to kind of get around the potentially of missing something unless you're in the room itself. But if you have the notes in this note-taking system, or have the copies of the books, whatever that you've read in the note-taking system, you can create a black card that can be placed in any room that the developers could see fit, that explains, hey, you have this digital note that explains what this note-taking system is, and one of the caveats, one of the sentences you can say is, but no tools will be available to use in the note-taking system. You must use them in the room. That's enough of, like, without spoiling it, without giving a hint, that I think could be able to help to kind of help at least the players be able to look back at those notes and be like, yeah, I remember this room had this note. What did it say again? Again, it's like it's either through screenshots or at least kind of, that's why I'm saying keeping the notes, because the notes don't change. There's no need for you to be able to necessarily like if you want to read it, but if you need to kind of reference it again, because again, at the beginning of the game, you don't know whether or not what note or what book is important. It'd be good to have that basically as a list of, you can be able to open up at any given time within the Blueprint system. All right. Now, you could be able to, like, and then I would say you could do one of other two things. You could, and this could be potentially minor spoilers, something like may contain, actually, let me just erase this real quick. So I'm gonna be able to get like a thinner a thinner pen here. Sorry. May contain blank. So some rooms sometimes have a gem, a key, coins. Now, some of the rooms they tell you what like when you unlock them, they have it. But sometimes there could be other stuff that could be in there. So having that potentially be in there, I don't think is a spoiler, but because there's sometimes these rooms kind of have extra stuff in there. I don't know if that's really super important, but I would think that potentially that could be helpful for the players. And then another section here could be for your own typed out notes. Now, if you're on PC, it's a little bit easier to be able to type out notes. And you can be able to like have a push a button, like say, we'll just push Y to be able to basically to open up a larger sort of page of typed notes. Console versions, this might be a little bit difficult because, and I would say probably a speech to text might be worth sort of investing in, so that way you could be able to like type out text, so that it also makes it more accessible in that sense, or also text to speech, obviously. And I think this game should have a screen reader anyway, but it'd be kind of difficult for what the game has. But so then basically that's where this is where you can be able to type in your individual notes. So this could be notes that you want to take specifically from this room, or any particular reminders for yourself, so you can be able to get back, so you can get back later. Whatever notes you would normally write down. This is where, like, minus any of the notes, any of the screenshots, any of the may contains. You can basically type in those notes there, and you can have like a fancy little like handwritten font. I would say probably more typed out font, like a typewriter, because you're typing, but or at least have an alternative font, so at least a little bit more readable for cognitive disabled players. Now, this is in and of itself is a very basic note-taking system that essentially this interface could be used within, I would also say, this menu right here. So I'm going back to this grid menu. So you can, so when you go into if you go into the directory and you say you have notes on the antechamber, right? I'll just we're marking it up. Yep. And we use this. Okay. So what you should do is basically, okay, now you can be able to bring up the notes for this room, and this is where you can basically have this section here. I know that there's probably some text that's like gets pushed down here, but I'm filling in the space here. It could basically be filled in with, like, it could be make it smaller to basically kind of be about here, but you know what I mean. Basically, we'll just say that, okay, screenshots, and then notes, may contain, and then your notes here. And you should be able to open this up at any given time for any room that you've already unlocked before you place them on the map, or before you draft them into the game, because you could basically see what other rooms there are, and should this should be like if you go into, we'll just say, yeah, you go into 46, and you click on the antechamber, okay? Then you can be able to open up this little notes, and you can open up the screenshots, you can open up the whatever notes you found, the may contain stuff, and then your notes you can be able to bring up at any given time. That should be enough of like, so you can be able to gather your own information without having to, not necessarily to replace this. If you still want to use a notebook, I think you still can, and the game does encourage you to do so. I just think by adding just this simple note-taking system, and I know I'm going long here for this episode, so I apologize. I hope this is making sense. By creating this, and I'm open to feedback too. If you think that there should be other stuff that could be in there, try to be able to, within the comments, don't spoil it. Please, I don't want anyone to look in the comments and basically get any spoilers for anything. But try to be able to keep it as spoiler free as you possibly can. But if you're worried about looking at the comments in this, I would probably say if you're worried about spoilers, probably best not to look down the comments, because there's probably gonna be someone that's gonna accidentally spoil something that you may not have known about. You can be able to, with all this information, the screenshots, the may contains, the notes, and your own personal notes, or notebooks or books, and your own personal notes. That is enough of a note-taking system that's within the game that you can be able to bring up at any given time. So that way that the player doesn't feel as overwhelmed, because you're giving them the tools to find out what they think is important, and then also what the game is going to say it's going to be important later on. Because this should cover pretty much everything that you would need to cover. Because there's also, of course, there's also math types of problems. There's also numbers. There's letters. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you're finding. So this is where you can be able to put into your notes, like all those fun little, those things that are in there. I would even say, if you want to be able to go even further, a step further, if you want to mark up or highlight The books that you find, if you want to highlight what you think is important, you could those highlights should be in this notes. So you find a book in a room and you were like, oh, that's an important line. I want to remember that. You can use a highlighter, highlight that section, whatever the highlighting system you want to be able to include in there. Highlight it or underline it, like mark up the book itself. So that, but the markups only work within the note-taking system itself. Okay. So that way, if you want to preserve the narrative of the game, you're not actually marking up or highlighting the books or the notes themselves that are in the room. So when you open up the note within the room, it's clean. There's no markups of your stuff in there. But in your note-taking system, it's basically all your notes are like all your highlights and everything is in there. It's basically like creating a copy of that book and putting it into your own notes. This would help out a ton for cognitive disability. Will this solve a lot of cognitive accessibility in this game? Not really, not a huge amount, but it does. I would say there's a lot of other, like, it's mostly like because the puzzles, there's some cognitive disability that's difficult for there, but this would help out a ton so that those players can be able to at least move further along in the game so that they can be able to at least feel like that they could, if they've taken enough notes or they know what to look for, they can be able to focus in on those things because of the notes that they've taken throughout the whole entire time. I think that this experiment that I've been doing this morning is pretty much exactly kind of like what I would love to see. And there's obviously, you have to make it accessible because you have to make it colorblind friendly and all that stuff, and you have to make it make sure that it doesn't involve a lot of buttons or a lot of mouse navigation. That's why I think the highlighting system could be a bit of an issue because it is cursor navigation, and you should be able to at least use the D-pad to be able to navigate stuff like that as well. But I think you like. There's a way, like, this is a good enough start of a design that I think if you work on it, you could be able to make it even more accessible and finesse it even more. And I think that's pretty much would help and solve a lot of the cognitive disability that I've seen so far within the game. Now, I've not unlocked everything. I've not unlocked every room. I'm still figuring this stuff out as I go. And I would say that there's even stuff that I found out that on day 18 that I wish I knew back in day 3. Like, there's stuff like that that eventually will kind of unlock and reveal itself over time. But I think with this system here, this would at least keep the game from being too overwhelming. And also, this should also be like, so not only should this note-taking system be available here, but I think as well, in the previous blueprints of previous days, maybe even having a version of this in here as well. You can really go back and add notes as you've gone. Like add more notes. Basically, I don't know. There could be something. This could be implemented in previous days, so that way it gives you a little bit more information. I think stuff like tools you've collected and stuff like that could be a huge help to let you know. Okay, this tool was found in this room. And again, sometimes these tools are RNG, so you have to kind of remember that as well. And there's some tools that you have to purchase as well. But I think it would still be good to be able to have a version of this within the previous day's blueprints. I'm saying blueprints as in not blue, like the son of a king, but a blueprints as in PRANTS. And I've got a phone call. It's an unknown number. So I think that in of itself, I think this is, again, very basic game design exercise of creating a note-taking system for blueprints that I think could help solve some of the cognitive accessibility issues in the game, but I think could benefit everyone else as well. Imagine you have this system in the game and you can take screenshots, you can be able to keep the notes or books, information you found in those rooms. You can be able to make your own notes for each, and these notes are for each individual room, by the way. You can have a collection of maybe all your other notes if you want to be able to have that as like a notepad, because I won't spoil it, but there is something that is similar to sort of something like that later on. But having those notes basically kind of like collected could be a fun thing to be able to see at the end of the game, or to be able to keep referencing back to, so you'll be able to see what kind of notes you took throughout the entire game. I think that system would be enough that would, like, for everybody would be able to benefit from this. That keeps the parameters of it doesn't spoil the game, and it doesn't, and it still keeps discoverability, because you still have to find the rooms. You still have to, like, in order to be able to unlock the notes to be able to unlock the ability to take notes for that room. And I think that could be enough for the players to be able to play around with. So you don't have to rely on your own personal note-taking process as much. And you don't, and even though everything, like, you could, because the thing, again, the overwhelming is, like, you don't know what's important. So that's where the screenshots can take to effect. You take a screenshot thinking, there's something here. I don't know what all of this is, but I want to be able to reference this later. That's what essentially what all the notes are. I want to reference this later. Taking a screenshot of it and keeping it within the game itself. Now you can I know you could say you can take a screenshot within the operating system itself. You can capture the screenshot on PlayStation, on Xbox, and on PC as well. I'm talking about an internal screenshot system, because that is much better, because then that means that every version of the game, regardless of what platform, could be able to do this. I think that is enough that you'll be able to kind of go through your photos. You can make it even cool, like make it a Polaroid camera or something like that you'll be able to, like, the narrative within the game, and you had this camera all along, and it basically takes a screenshot of a Polaroid of all the things within the room. And you can even, I don't even know if you want to be able to say you can unlock even more film or more screenshots. You get more Polaroids to be able to use, that kind of thing. But you start off with that at the beginning of the game, or something narrative you can be able to include into that, and have your own digital notebook. That would be enough to be able to, at least at the beginning of the game, to kind of get over that learning curve of it's be overwhelming to the point where you can't play. That it's a slower learning curve to be able to get the players into the game without spoiling, without letting them discover things for themselves. And then because it takes a little bit, it takes that little bit. Once you get over that hump, then the game starts to gets addicting, and that's where you hook the players, and and for them to be able to keep going. Once you get to that point, then that game is much more a more fun challenge than necessarily being like, is my disability getting away or not, or is this just too overwhelming? Okay. All right. I know this was a much longer episode. I didn't mean it to be, but I wanted to at least get that out, because I had this epiphany this morning. I was like, there's something there, and I would love to be able to see this happen. And if the developers from Blueprints are watching this, feel free to take it, or feel free to reach out to me and consult with me on it a bit more, so to make sure that it's accessible. So I'd love to be able to help you out, because I think this is a great game. But I think it just, with a few bit of accessibility, you can be able to help out a ton of disabled players be able to enjoy what seems to be a game of the year type game for a lot of people right now. All right, that's it for me. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks so much for watching. If you got this far, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any comments or feedback, please let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe, all that stuff. And that's it for me. I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.